Hello. Good to be here again. Unfortunately, it looked like another cloudy month ahead of us, but we'll assume the skies are going to clear up and everything's going to be fine. Tonight is going to be a bit of an embarrassment for me. A long time ago, Dennis Gray asked me to cover for him on his Sky This Month night, and I shamelessly stole his template, and I've been using it ever since. And my
copyright notice at the bottom there.
Yeah. My theft is going to be exposed in front of the entire internet, and but there we are. So what we have tonight, the big picture, planets, the moon, bit of a digression into spiral galaxies, comets and meteors, variable stars, obviously. Double star, is Blake here? I can't see in the darkness out there. If he's not, he's probably watching online, so he knows I remembered, and some spaceflight highlights. So starting, this is what the sky looks like behind the clouds. If we look to the west around now, we can see the summer constellations are slowly disappearing, but we can still see a few planets there. We've got Saturn still visible above the horizon, Pluto, Mars, Neptune, and Uranus. So there's still some planets to be seen. Still some Milky Way to be seen. We've got the summer Milky Way just about directly overhead if you're out early enough. If you stay up late enough till the morning, we get the summer constellations starting to appear, Bootes, Corona Borealis, Hercules, and all that gang. Not a lot in the way of exciting planets in the morning. Venus, I guess, is the big one. Ceres is going to be just barely visible. And for those of you with giant telescopes and great patience, a couple of the more obscure minor planets way out there. The nights are getting long. Twilight ends at 6:22 and starts at 5 in the morning. By the next meeting, twilight will end at 6:05 and start again at 5:42 in the morning. So that's a lot of imaging time for people who need long exposures. It means you can take your telescope out, see a few good things, and get back inside before dinner. So lots of observing time coming up, weather permitting. Important dates. New moon is today. Full moon, another full new moon coming up December 7th. The moon is at apogee on November 14th and perigee on the 26th. As always, I encourage people to take pictures of the moon at these two occasions so you can compare the size. It's always an interesting experience. Pluto will be occulted by the moon on November 12th. We're not going to see it from around here. If you're traveling up to the northeast corner of Canada or up around Greenland, then you'll get a chance to see it. I personally wouldn't recommend the trip, but it's going to be hard enough even finding Pluto. November 18th, we've got the Leonid meteors, and Venus's greatest illuminated extent on December 2nd. So if you want to be up in the early morning showing people the brightest thing they can see in the sky, that'll be Venus that day. So the moon, new moon coming up on tonight, another one on December 7th, full moon on the 23rd, if you want to plan around that. Lunar X on November 15th at about 4 in the morning. I'm guessing most people here know what the Lunar X is, but for people who don't and people watching on the internet, it's an interesting intersection of craters, which if you look at it at a certain time, makes an X. It's not scientifically important, but it's a cool thing to see, and it's fun to look at. I'm not sure I would get up at 4 in the morning to see it, but if you're up at 4 in the morning for your other observing programs, have a look. It's a cool thing. So the planets we have coming up, Mercury and Venus are the morning planets. Mercury is going to be pretty lousy unless you have a really good horizon. Even then, it's hardly going to be worth the effort. Early December, it will improve. It'll be visible anyway. Venus is the morning star. It's rising and getting brighter in the morning sky. Right now, it's a narrow, close crescent. It's just about as close to us as it's going to get, and it's receding away from us, but the phase is increasing, so it'll be getting considerably brighter. Ceres and Jupiter are also up there. Ceres is good because it's the best of the minor planets. Not many people have seen minor planets. Everyone knows about the big controversy about Pluto. There was actually the same controversy about Ceres and Vesta way back in the 19th century, so this is your chance to dig into some astronomical history and find the controversial object of past times. Jupiter will just kind of be appearing right before dawn. Not a great view yet, but the fun thing about Jupiter is it stays visible into the day, especially if you have a telescope, so you'll be able to track it then. Ceres will be early December. Ceres will be pretty close to Venus, so if you want to go looking for it, it'll be a good time. You'll have that marker in the sky. In the evening, Mars is the thing everyone's going to be looking at. It's not its best viewing right now. It's about 11 arc seconds across, which is pretty small. However, given that when it was at its opposition, it was all covered with dust anyway, you're probably going to get a better view of it now than you did then. Should be able to see the ice caps in small telescopes, medium or large telescopes. You'll be able to see all the other surface features, Syrtis Major and all those. So Mars is probably the best thing we've got to show off to people if you have, if you've got friends who want to have a look at the night sky and you need something spectacular to show them. The other outer planets, Saturn's just disappearing into the sunset. If you have a good western horizon, you may be able to show your friends the rings, but the seeing is going to be lousy. You're not going to see anything interesting there. I doubt you'll see the Cassini Gap or any weather. Pluto's in Sagittarius. It's hopeless. It's too close to the horizon. It's too light while it's up any higher, and it's almost impossible to see when it's that deep in the Milky Way anyway. Neptune and Uranus are better placed. They're actually, if they were brighter planets, they would be outstanding for showing to the public. Anybody who's seen them knows that in any amateur telescope, they're really not that spectacular. They're just kind of a small greeny blue disk. I would suggest that people go out and compare them. Everyone tells me that Uranus is blue in color and Neptune is green in color. And I'm never really sure whether that's just a power of suggestion or something they've read in a book or actually gone out there and observed it. So if you get a chance to compare the color of those two planets, give it a try. I would be interested to hear what results you get. And Eris and Makemake are out there. I suppose it is technically possible for anybody here with the largest telescope and the most powerful CCDs and great patience to actually get an image of them. If anybody does so, let me know. I will post your picture up here the next time I'm doing the sky this month, and everyone can clap for you. So I always like to throw in a bit of deep sky stuff for people to look at. Local spiral galaxies are up now, M31, M33, and all the little galaxies that follow Andromeda around. For those of us stuck in the city, they're terrible targets, even though you can see the center of M31. If you can get out of the city, then you've got something worth seeing. I'm going to suggest people take a look at M31. I mean, everybody's seen it. Everyone's seen it a million times. It's the first thing you point your telescope out at when it gets dark at night. But there are more things to see in it than just seeing the galaxy. Beginning observers, seeing the galaxy is enough. It's pretty spectacular. For more advanced observers, looking for the dust lanes, looking for the giant superclusters, the stellar associations. Really advanced observers can go digging for globular clusters, or even trying for individual stars. 16.5 magnitude is the brightness of the giant Cepheids that they use to actually determine the distance to the Andromeda Galaxy. 16.5 magnitude is not out of reach of more than a few people in this room. So if you feel like an observing project, you can actually measure the brightness of those stars and calculate the distance to the Andromeda Galaxy. That's a project that would actually be really impressive to achieve. I can't do it. My telescope's not that good. And yeah, there's M31. Everyone loves it. M32 and M110 in there as well. I always remember M32 is the close one because the numbers are in succession. And yeah, you can see a bunch of the bright stellar associations along the rim there, and some of the brighter nebula along the other edge there. So yeah, there are targets available for people with a taste for the more exotic, even in something as common as M31. So comets and meteors coming up. The Leonids are peaking on November 17th. The moon is up until 2 a.m., so if you're going to go looking for them, you'll want to stay up pretty late. It's a one-night shower. There's not going to be much before or after, but that's really all we've got until the next meeting. Now, 2 days after the meeting, then we have the Geminids, and that's a shower worth seeing. So keep that in mind for the future. We have 4 comets, reasonably bright and improving: Stephanoterma, Wirtanen, Swift-Gehrels, and Atlas 2018. Wirtanen is actually pretty far south, pretty close to the horizon from here, so it's not an outstanding target. Atlas 2018 in Ophiuchus is going to set pretty soon, so if you do want to observe, get out and see it as quickly as possible. And 21P Jacobini Zinner is still out there. It's fading, unlike the others, but it's right there in Canis Major, which makes it a nice, easy target once the night starts getting on. So for variable star this month, I've picked Beta Persei, which we all know as Algol. I picked this one because it's actually pretty accessible. It's an easy one to see. There's a mention of every minima in the observer's handbook, so you'll be reminded when to get out there and observe. Every 2.8 days, more or less, it drops over a magnitude, and there are nearby stars of roughly equivalent brightness, so it's a pretty easy observing target. It's what you have is a faint dim star eclipsing the bright primary. So when the bright primary is blocked, the magnitude plunges pretty dramatically. When it goes the other way around, when the bright star is passing in front of the dim star, it's not so much of a spectacular event. You need a photometer to be able to measure that. What's interesting about this, and the reason I suggest people get out there and observe it, is the period has been changing. Over the past century, it's actually increased in time. The orbit of the 2 stars around each other is slowing down. So if you're the kind of person who likes to get out there and take as accurate as possible measurements of stars changing brightness, gathering data on eclipsing variables and not just Algol but other equivalent stars is useful data to professional astronomers. looking for a good double star. Alpha Piscium is one that I had a good deal of fun with because it's a very narrow double. I actually had a really hard time splitting it, and actually I'm not sure my scope was sufficiently columnated because I didn't split it. I just got it as a kind of elongated double blob. But with maybe a slightly better eyepiece, maybe a bit more patience in collimating your telescope, it should be splittable by any reasonable telescope. I also find it interesting because its orbit is really fast. It seems to be going around at a rate of about a degree a year. So that's actually enough to record and go back in a few years' time and see a noticeable difference. So it would be a good long-term project to observe this one as it goes through the years. So coming up in the world of spaceflight, Falcon, more Falcon launches. I'm not even going to bother watching them unless they promise a landing. I still think the landings are cool. Launches, I don't know. The interesting thing to me is what's going to be happening with Soyuz. As we know, the last astronaut launch aborted halfway up, and the astronauts returned to Earth through some peril, not entirely a safe process. So the Russians have promised that there will be 3 successful flights of the rocket before they put humans back on. In the meantime, the astronauts are stuck up on the space station, so it'll be very interesting to see what happens there. The space station will be passing overhead in the morning until November 15th. Then for a while we'll see nothing, and then November 24th until mid-December it'll be passing over in the evening. It's always a good target to get your friends out to have a look at it. Everybody likes seeing astronauts flying over in space. Heavensabove.com has times and locations, which you'll be able to look up for yourselves. The Hayabusa 2 probe orbiting the asteroid Ryugu. They've got a couple landers on it, and now they're having some close orbits preparing for the next set of landers. Keep an eye out for interesting data coming back from there and showing up on the internet. Next question, the Opportunity rover. As of 2 days ago, they were still trying to contact it. NASA hasn't entirely given up on it. But the longer it goes, the worse the odds they're going to recontact it. So keep an eye on the news there and see what happens. We know that this has been a bad month. Both the Kepler and Dawn probes have finally run out of fuel and have finished their missions. But on the upside for astronomy, and I'm not going to go into the politics of it because it's ugly, but the 30-meter telescope was okayed by the Hawaiian Supreme Court, so we'll see what happens there. And I guess the other item in the news this past month that needs to be discussed, we all know about this. Umeya, somebody from Harvard University has come out with the opinion that this is actually not an asteroid or a comet from an extrasolar location, but actually a solar sail-powered space probe come to have a look at us. Is this true? No, it's almost certainly not true. I feel confident in saying this because if it turns out it is a solar-powered space probe from another solar system, nobody will ever remember that I went and contradicted that. But over the next month, keep an eye on it. If it turns around and comes back for another look, then we'll know that I was wrong. So thank you very much. And are there any questions?
And did you have any information on the object that was being close to the sun? The object that is approaching the sun?
I do not, no.
There's a spacecraft that is supposed to take measurements very close to the sun.
Oh, right, yeah. Sorry, I missed that one, yeah. Yeah, we'll keep an eye out for that, too.
What information can you give about the status of the dust storm? I haven't looked at Mars for a while, and is it worthwhile pulling my scope out again?
That's an excellent question. Whenever I look at Mars, whenever I've been looking the past month and a half, what I actually see is clouds. So I can't tell you what I've seen on Mars recently. I'm told that the dust storm passed late summer, August, early September, so it should be clear now. I haven't heard of anything coming back. So next clear night, take your telescope out and have a look. Yes, May.
Hopefully not.
Okay, thank you very much.